JD Vance is the vice presidential nominee for President Trump. Now, if you had a time machine, if you go back 2 weeks, would he have picked JD Vance again? I doubt it. And JD is super smart. He also has a long history of public commentary.
You will not believe the Democratic lawmaker who actually agrees with Ben Shapiro on this. We're gonna get to him in just a moment. But before we do, why don't we listen to Shapiro elaborate further on JD Vance and how Trump might have buyer's remorse.
I think he probably would have picked somebody like Glenn Youngkin from Virginia in an attempt to broaden out his base. Instead, he went with JD Vance, feeling, because he was right, that at the time he had a very solid advantage in the race against Joe Biden. I agree that our country has moved away from caring about the future because too few Americans care about having children. I totally agree with that. However, this description that JD Vance is using, is that politically smart or is it politically damaging? Now, again, he doesn't have a time machine. He can't go back and undo something he said now 3.5 years ago. With that said, Democrats are, of course, using this as a club with which to beat Donald Trump and JD Vance. They're trying to run up the gender gap. So one of the things to understand about this election cycle is that the gender gap is larger than it has ever been in the history of American politics in all likelihood. Males overwhelmingly vote for Trump. Females, particularly single females, overwhelmingly vote for Biden. And so they're going to try to find some sort of wedge to claim that all Republicans are sexist. And this is the wedge they're using today.
It seems to be working really well, if that's the wedge that they're using. And look, I mean, I will say this, Cenk. Kamala Harris, so far in her campaigning, has done a good job in focusing on that wedge issue, labeling JD Vance and the Republican ticket as weird rather than hyper focusing on threat to democracy, which clearly was not effective messaging. It did not help Biden much in the election. And so now you have Democrats kind of lining up to mock the Republican ticket, make fun of them, call them weird, as opposed to constantly fear-mongering about the Republican ticket. So there were definitely portions of what Shapiro was saying there that I definitely agree with.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it. Well, first of all, I think that JD Vance is definitely going in the wrong direction for Republicans, and it's interesting to see Republicans acknowledging that and realizing that, because you're doubling down on something that was already unpopular. When I say unpopular, the number one problem we have in this country and everywhere is not just as it pertains to politics, but it's particularly true in politics, is that it's the hardest thing in the world is to escape your own perspective. So when I say Trump is unpopular, or the idea that you should be forced into having more children, otherwise your rights should be taken away, is unpopular, a lot of people who believe that are like, no way. Everyone I know thinks you gotta have more babies. And MAGA's awesome, and everyone I know is MAGA. But guys, I'm gonna tell you the same thing I told Blue MAGA earlier, when they were pretending that Joe Biden was young and dynamic. Yeah, you can think that all day long, but that's not the question. The question is, what do a majority of Americans believe? And a majority of Americans believe we should make the choices on whether we have kids, how many kids we have, and then you should take a long walk off a short dock, because we don't give a damn what you think about our personal lives. And that also applies to whether we should use contraception, who we should sleep with, who we should get married with. Oh, do I have to ask JD Vance's permission before I go on a date with someone? And and which clothes did you wear? And are you in, which, on and on and on, okay? The right wing is going back to the moralizing, annoying party that it has been for most of my life.
Yeah, it's a good point.
They had a little brief honeymoon where they rhetorically talked a lot about freedom. And I said, look, I don't think they mean it. And here we are, they didn't mean it. Freedom to them meant, well, I want to be able to say inappropriate things and get away with it. Okay, but that's not all of freedom. You know, how many kids you want to have is a giant part of freedom. Whether you can control your own body or not is a giant part of freedom. And
can we have both freedoms?
Yeah, can we have all of the freedoms? Yeah. Right? Can we be disciplined and principled and consistent? And so usually the case for politicians is no. But in this case, back to the main issue, this whole JD Vance, I'm gonna tell you how to live your life and you need to have more kids. That dog ain't gonna hunt. That is a terrible, anti-freedom, annoying message that Americans do not want to hear, even if they have plenty of kids, let alone the people without kids. They're gonna hate you for life because you're judging them and shaming them when you have no business doing that.
Now, there have been a lot of questions about whether Donald Trump has come to the realization that JD Vance is a terrible VP pick, whether he has buyer's remorse. And in interview after interview, when he's been asked that question, he has remained consistent in defending JD Vance and arguing that he's a great VP pick. In fact, he just had an interview with Laura Ingraham, and Aaron Rupar is tweeting out about it because it aired as we were doing the show, I guess. And so Ingraham asked Donald Trump, what can you say to viewers to reassure them that JD Vance was an excellent pick? Donald Trump responded with, he's got tremendous support, and he really does among a certain group of people like families. He made a statement having to do with families. That was a verbatim quote from Trump.
Of course it was. That sounds totally like Trump.
Yeah, okay, but Ben Shapiro still seems optimistic about Trump winning another term in office. So let's hear his argument there.
So this is why I say Republicans are gonna have to be significantly more careful about what they say against Kamala Harris than they have been against Joe Biden. Not because Kamala is wonderful or decent or anything like that, but because the media are waiting. They're waiting. Do not play their game. Just do not play their game. Donald Trump still has the advantage in this election. He does. He has the advantage in this election. It just requires the president of the United States, Donald Trump, former president, to be very meticulous about what he says. And the same is true for JD Vance. I have some faith that they will. Again, I think that both are intelligent men, particularly JD.
Well, I mean, real quick though, he is right that even now, Trump still has the advantage and Kamala Harris is the underdog in this race. He is right about that. Can Trump increase his lead over Harris? I don't know, especially with JD Vance fumbling over and over again in press interviews.
Did I hear that right? That he said Trump and Vance are both bright guys, especially JD Vance. Okay, because he knows he couldn't help himself. He can't stomach saying that Trump is intelligent because he knows he ain't. Okay.
You're right. Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, that's, by the way, that's why I dislike JD Vance more, because I know that brother knows that this is BS, and he was pretending to be a liberal a minute ago and calling Trump Hitler and all that, and talking up his identity politics on how he's a poor hillbilly and all that stuff, right? So now all of a sudden you're massively conservative? No, you're perfectly bright. You just have no moral core. But agreeing with Ben Shapiro, should Republicans resist attacking her on race and gender? Of course, it'll backfire. Because once you attack her on gender, first of all, that's 51% of the voters. So that's just the dumbest thing you could do. But they, as I've told you already many times, they won't be able to help themselves because that's who they are. I'm talking about the leaders, I'm not talking about the voters, okay? Media figures, politicians, etc. And then on race, you're gonna wash away gains that you made with African Americans when you attack her on race. Now, I will say though, again, what no other show will say. On the other hand, Democrats and Kamala Harris should not make the mistake of going around saying you have to vote for her because she's a black woman. That would be a giant mistake because that also turns people off.
It does, yeah.
I have to vote for her because of she's a certain race and gender? No, I don't. So the Democrats should not do identity politics. They should let the Republicans do their toxic form of identity politics and take the win. Will they be able to resist? I don't know. I already see groups like white men for Harris, white women for Harris. Like, what are we doing, guys? But like, it's okay to be for Kamala Harris without stating your race. Do I have to do Turks who are not Turkish citizens, Muslims who are now atheists for Harris? Just be for Harris without doing weirdo stuff like that. It doesn't help.
Yeah, and it's also about the messaging within those groups, right? Like, I was a little critical of those groups and then I got pushed back. Oh, well, you should listen to the conversations, like the substantive conversations that are happening. But typically, especially in that white women for Harris group, the conversations are white women bad, white women like destroy country, use your privilege to promote Harris. Like that's gonna turn women off.
Yeah, not helpful.
Like don't do that.
Not
don't
helpful.
do that. Okay.
Yeah, like this, any shaming of our private lives and opinions is bad politics.
Yes, I agree.
So when Democrats go, you don't know how to handle Kamala Harris's sorority that she went to at Howard University, which is mainly a black sorority.
Do not wear pearls, okay?
Okay, don't do this and don't do that and don't interrupt their dancing. How dare you not know? How the hell are we supposed to know what a black sorority does and doesn't do?
Look, people,
when you shame people for things they couldn't possibly know, you're just turning them off. Leave it alone. The Republicans will do your job for you.
You put it perfectly, right? We see how the toxic identity politics and culture war messaging from the Trump ticket is sinking the Trump ticket. Democrats should heed that warning and not engage in it with like the Democrat flavor of culture war, identity politics stuff.
Just like the Republicans can't help themselves, I guarantee you the Democrats will not be able to help themselves.
Let's cross our fingers and hope that they can. Okay, but for now, I want to get back to the Democratic lawmaker who seems to agree with Ben Shapiro on Trump potentially having some buyer's remorse on JD Vance. And that individual is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Take a look.
The addition of JD Vance to this ticket, it's incredibly bad choice. I think Donald Trump, I know him, and he's probably sitting and watching the TV, and every day it comes out Vance has done something more extreme, more weird, more erratic. Vance seems to be more erratic and more extreme than President Trump, and I'll bet President Trump is sitting there scratching his head and wondering, why did I pick this guy? The choice may be one of the best things he ever did for Democrats.
And Schumer even went so far as to make a pretty bold prediction that I don't think is that crazy. So let's take a look.
The president has about 10 days before the Ohio ballot is locked in, and he has a choice. Does he keep Vance on the ticket, where he already has a whole lot of baggage? He's probably going to be more baggage over the weeks because we'll hear more things about him. Or does he pick someone new? It's his choice.
So what do you think about that, Cenk? Do you think that he might switch Vance out for someone else?
I don't know, but I do know that it's smart politics to open this debate up because the Republicans lose no matter which side of the question you're on. Should he dump JD Vance or not? Already we're having a conversation about how awful JD Vance is and how hurt the Trump ticket is and how they should react to that. So that is a great conversation for Democrats to have. So nicely played by Chuck Schumer there. It's not true that they have to decide by August 7th because the Ohio ballot measure, that's a thing that was an issue earlier. Ohio fixed it. Democrats are still pretending it's an issue so they could do a virtual roll call on August 7th. I just want to be clear about the facts. Schumer is not correct about that. The other thing about Schumer is these are all good points, but he's among the 200-year-olds that run Washington, so you could lose that point in an otherwise incredibly mundane presentation.
I agree.
That is why when Kamala Harris makes a good speech, or Tim Walz is great on TV, or Josh Shapiro / Barack Obama gives a speech, Democrats and independents are like, whoa, look at that. Someone who can make an effective point in a way that's engaging. That's amazing, right? So let's get that new talent in, keep them going, keep them going. So Schumer, good job on the strategy. Everything else, let's get some young blood in there.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, in our bonus episode, we have a fun senator making an appearance and getting scolded by a Fox News host. So it's a conservative lawmaker getting scolded by right-wing Fox News.
Hit the join button below if you're on YouTube to join us so you could get that bonus episode. Everyone else, tyt.com/team. And one last thing, be careful about the word weird. Tim Walz came up with it. I love it. I like being aggressive, but don't let it become the synonym for Christian or just white right-wingers, etc. I'm a little afraid of that. Just something to look out for. Keep it exactly as it is now. Don't go any further with it. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.